I will go ahead and start us off. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Paying for College webinar. We are excited to partner with District 128 and Carmel Catholic High School for tonight's evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Bianca Novacek, and I'm the College and Career Counselor at Carmel Catholic High School, and I'll allow my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erin Murphy, Post-Secondary Counselor at Libertyville.
And I'm Becky Bolito, Post-Secondary Counselor at Vernon Hills High School.
Tonight, we are so incredibly lucky to have our keynote speaker, Jerry Sabrinsky from Lake Forest College, present to us. Jerry has been in the financial aid profession for over 40 years, most recently as an Associate Vice President for Financial Aid at Lake Forest College. Before joining Lake Forest, he began his career as a financial aid counselor at DePaul University in Chicago. At Lake Forest, Jerry performs outreach activities both on and off campus and has had extensive numbers of speaking engagements at various high school programs on financial aid. Jerry has served as an elected member of the National College Board Advisory Council, as an elective college delegate to the National Assembly for the National Association for College Admission Counseling, and as vice president of the Illinois Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators. He is a sought-after member for many committee and scholarship boards because of his expertise. Jerry has also been a guest financial aid expert on Good Morning America, CBS News, and WGN TV. Tonight, we're going to go ahead and turn over the presentation to Jerry. We ask if you have any questions to please utilize your Q&A function on the bottom of your screen. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this is a webinar. You can see us, but we can't see you. So for any questions that you have, please feel free to use the Q&A function. We will try to answer the questions the best that we can during Jerry's presentation, but then we will save some time at the end for a short Q&A. All right, without further ado, please welcome our keynote speaker, Jerry Sabrinsky.
Thank you, Bianca and Becky and Erin. Thank you all we have a nice size audience. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to share the wonderful, exciting world of financial aid, college scholarships, college costs, everything in between. I've got a PowerPoint that I'm going to pull up shortly and go through that. I've got lots of exciting slides. Can't use the word exciting too much, I guess, with this topic. And then certainly, as Bianca mentioned, if you have any questions at all, I think the best part of an evening session like this are the questions that you ask, because it gives me a sense of where you're coming from, what's most important to you. So I'm going to go through all my slides, and I'm going to dazzle you, I'm going to encourage you, and excite you, but really ask me anything. I love answering questions. That said, let me share my PowerPoint. Let me get back up to the title page, and hopefully you can all see this, and hopefully you can all hear me. Let me know if we run into any technical issues at all. Fingers crossed. What I want to make sure that we cover tonight, what I want to share with you, is to talk about more an overview to begin with of the real cost of college and what financial aid is all about, what types of programs are out there, how to apply for not only some of the financial aid programs, but the scholarship programs, receiving offers of financial aid from the different colleges, how to read them, how to compare them, how to compare apples to apples. Throughout this whole process that begins now and can go for the next 6 months or so, keeping in mind there are some deadlines that we want to be aware of, some soft deadlines, some drop dead dates, some drop dead deadlines. Lots of places you can get help. All three schools have absolutely wonderful resources. And I don't just say that because they're all online with us, but really, truly, they've got my cell phone number, they've got my email. If you were to ask them a question that they don't have the answer to, they can contact me, and I was going to say lickety split, get an answer back to them, but it's like, okay, Grandpa. But I will quickly get an answer back to them. That said, the biggest question that we're still receiving and talking about, and I'm talking to parents about in any of these sessions or on one-on-one conversations, is truly these days, is college affordable? And partially that's because a lot of the media reports out there are saying, college tuition is out of control. It's being increased double digits. It's not keeping, it's exceeding the cost of inflation. And, it's not, middle class is not accessible to college education anymore. The truth of the matter is, college is more affordable these days than it has ever been in the life of college. 85% of all currently enrolled first-year undergraduate students receive financial aid to help them with the costs of the college. And that's everywhere, 2-year, 4-year, public, private colleges. At private colleges, that percentage exceeds 90%, 95, 98, 99% at a lot of the colleges out there. Of all of the assistance that's given to a student, to a family, to help them with the sticker price, which I'll talk about in just a little bit, is gift aid, free money, grant, scholarship, nothing that's paid back. It's given to a student because they've earned it, they deserve it, they need it. The rest of the offer, a third of the offer, is made up of other options: student loans, work study, other kinds of things. I'll tell every family, and I hope all of you, if you're even on the fence of thinking of going through this entire process, please do, because you'll be pleasantly surprised, I promise you. And there is so much help out there to guide you through the process and to give you direction. Putting costs in perspective, sticker price, a 4-year public university these days, on average, charges about $28,000 for tuition, fees, room, and board. But even that's on the low end for many of the public universities. University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, over $40,000 a year. An Illinois student who's thinking about going to Iowa or Michigan, over $40,000, $50,000 a year. On the other end of the spectrum, the private colleges, where on average $58,000, $60,000 is their sticker price. But as I mentioned earlier, over 90% of students are not paying the sticker price at either the 4-year public or the 4-year private institution. I love this website. I show this website every time I do a session or I talk to families. I share with families, collegecost.ed.gov. This is a really good informational website, a good place to start when you're starting the college search process. Every one of these pictures on here is a link to another website. And there's a couple on here that I use all the time: the College Navigator and the College Scorecard. The Navigator gives you an upfront sense of what a college is all about, where they're located, what kind of school they are, the enrollment. And I've got screenshots for both of these to give you more detail. So up front, the scorecard is more of the back end, the outcomes. How well does a college perform? How well is it meeting what it markets to you in some of its pieces, its view books, its online accolades? What is the graduation rate? What is the student loan default rate? The College Navigator, here's a screenshot of course, Lake Forest College. I use this, but here's what you will see when you plug in any school. It'll tell you where they're located, what type of school that they are, what their enrollment is, and all of those categories at the bottom. You can drill down into much more detailed information about everything from what the student body, where they're coming from, how many males, how many females, how many in-state, out-of-state, to financial aid, what financial aid programs that they offer, to the programs, to varsity athletic teams, to public safety. This website is a great place to start, but just keep in mind, it's a little dated because the data that populates this website is taken from what the colleges present to the Department of Ed, but it's always 1 to 2 years behind. That's just the nature of closing a school year, working on the reports, and getting it off to the Department of Ed. And the reason I say that is just at this Lake Forest example, you see the student population of 1,600, a little over 1,600. We're actually, close to 1,900 this year. That could be the only thing that is different on these schools. For the majority of the schools that are out there, everything else that you see will be consistent from year to year. The scorecard then gives you more of the outcome data. The Navigator and the scorecard overlap in a lot of the data that they have, but it's separate enough that I really recommend looking at both of these so you get a much fuller picture of what the college is all about. Not only the cost with the graduation rates, if students have student loans, what their student loan default rates are, the average amount borrowed, employment, if students are getting a job, within a couple years after undergrad, how much are they making on average? And this is a very interactive website. Two things. One, it's updated more quickly than the Navigator because colleges can put real-time data into the scorecard, which a lot do, especially when they want to toot their own horn about their graduation rates or their earnings or all sorts of different things. It's also a nice interactive tool in that you can plug in, show me a school that's in an urban area that has a 90% four-year graduation rate where over 95% of the students get scholarships and offers a degree in archaeology. You'll be able to compare side by side, all of those different attributes at the different colleges. Here are the different categories that you'll see. Again, you'll see some that are the same as on the College Navigator, some that are different. One of the newest categories that they added, and it's actually a new word for me, the third one from the bottom there, urbanicity. That just tells you how urban a school is, whether it's a DePaul or Loyola, located in the city of Chicago, or it's more suburban like Northwestern or Lake Forest, or it's rural like Grinnell or Luther or some of those colleges like that. Here is what you'll see when you plug in the name of a school. This is the first thing that will pop up at you, kind of the quick at a glance. The graduation rate of, and I use University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign as an example, right now. Their graduation rate after 6 years, because that's the standard right now that we're using, is 86%. Their average annual cost to a family is about $16,000, even though they charge over $40,000. And I'll go into more detail about that. And then that last thing, the median earnings for those graduates of Illinois who got a job within a couple of years after leaving Illinois, on average, they were earning, or the median earnings was about $77,000. If this were a Lake Forest College example, that median earnings would be a little over $80,000. But I'm just saying, I'm just kind of putting that out there for you. There is a tool on every college's website that is called the net price calculator, but I call it the net cost calculator. I think someday it will be called the net cost calculator because really it tells you what it's going to cost you at that particular college. It's very specific to the college, so they don't compare other schools. They'll give you a sense of, well, first they'll ask you for some general information from the student academically and where the family is coming from financially to give you a sense of, on average, what you might expect to receive in terms of merit-based scholarships, need-based grants, what student loan options there are, work study options. The net cost calculator can come in many shapes and sizes, lots of bells and whistles on a lot of them, very bare bones on some of the others. But ultimately, it just tells you the bottom line of what your out-of-pocket would be if your child were to go to that particular college. A couple caveats. It's not a guarantee. It's not a promise. It's not the application. It's not any of those things. It's a really good recruiting tool for colleges, especially the ones who are very generous. And it's a really good first step for families, for students to get a sense of, well, the sticker price on this school For example, Williams College. The sticker price at Williams is over $90,000 a year. But on average, at Williams, families are paying $12,000 a year. That gives you a sense of how generous a college is. When we talk about financial aid, not only myself, but my colleagues in admissions, high school counselors, when you hear about financial aid is anything and everything that has a dollar amount attached to it that helps a family with that sticker price I talked about. Financial aid is not just student loans. Financial aid is a grant. It's a scholarship. It's student loans. It's work study. Once in a while, I'm going to lapse into kind of financial aid lingo, or, like every profession, we have our own acronyms and language. But if my colleagues at other schools, and you're talking to that, lapse into this language, one of the things they might say is students being considered for gift aid. Gift aid is the scholarship or grant. That's the free money. Self-help is a student loan or work study because a student does something else to take advantage of them. Student loan paid back when they're no longer a student. Work study, they'll earn money only if they decide to work on campus or certain off-campus jobs. But it's a combination of all of these things that make up a financial aid offer to a family. The sources of financial aid come from the federal government through the use of our federal tax dollars. I want to make sure. Here we go. I think mine was off a little bit. The federal government, through the use of our federal tax dollars, fund all the federal grant programs, the federal student loan programs, federal work study programs. The state of Illinois, every state has its own grant programs and scholarship programs for students of that state. Here in Illinois, we've got an agency called the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. They administer a couple grant programs and a couple scholarship programs. One of the grant programs is called the MAP grant, the Monetary Award Program. If a student is eligible for the MAP grant, they can receive up to or a little over $8,000 a year at any of the schools they're looking at, throughout Illinois. It's not transportable. They can't take it with them to Iowa or Michigan or California. Illinois also offers some scholarships that have a value of up to $5,000 a year for students going into the teaching profession. And it doesn't have to be just a returning student, sophomore, junior, senior, who has declared education as a major. Even first-year students who have an inkling of wanting to be an educator can apply for one of these scholarships. Colleges and universities are a huge source of funding throughout this process. It's not surprising that when all is said and done, about 75% of the funding in the financial aid offer that you get is coming from the college or the scholarship itself, the college or the university itself, in a form of a grant or scholarship. And then private sources. I have to be careful that I don't get on my high horse or my soapbox, but private sources are a huge source of funding for students that really only help them with the total financial aid offer that they receive. Anything and everything that a student can do, that a parent can do to help the student apply for some of these scholarships is a win-win situation. It will 99.9% of the time only reduce what a family is paying out of pocket or reduce what a student is having to take out in student loans or rely on the work study program. Millions and millions of dollars out there for, yes, millions of students who are applying for them. But I just did a report at Lake Forest where I looked at all of our students who were bringing in outside scholarships. And actually, this is pretty typical because I talked to some other colleagues. And on average, our students who are bringing in an outside scholarship are bringing in a little over $6,000 each per year. And that's just what we call stackable. That is on top of what they're already getting from us. The only times, again, one of the caveats, the only times where that may not be the case is if they win a scholarship that is $50,000 a year, which is spectacular, but they're already getting $50,000 a year from the college itself. Colleges can't pay a student to be a student, so something will have to give with the university or the college, gift aid. But really, when all is said and done, it absolutely only helps the student to take advantage of these. I'm just going to not beat that dead horse and kind of stop there with the outside scholarships. When we lump or when we talk about financial aid overall, we lump it into two main categories. There's merit-based financial aid and there's need-based financial aid. Merit-based is a scholarship and it has nothing to do with where the family is coming from financially and everything to do with what the student brings to the table, what their credentials look like. So at the time of admission, the application is being read by an admission counselor. They're also reviewing at that moment in time eligibility for any of the merit scholarships that the college offers, not just academic based, but over the years, in the 40 plus years that I've been doing this, the number of non-academic based scholarships has skyrocketed. Other talents that a student brings to the table, like leadership ability or writing skills or social justice activities or being involved in green initiatives, also in the typical traditional fine arts, athletics, all sorts of things other than based on test scores, based on transcript, is a combination of all of the merit-based scholarships out there. The need-based scholarships, the need-based grants and student loans and work study and scholarships, additional scholarships, additional financial aid is we piggyback on the merit-based scholarship by looking at any need-based aid that's out there. And that I'm going to spend a lot more time on, this evening, talking about how we consider a family for a need-based grant or student loan or work study. In an earlier slide, I showed you that like at a private college, 90% of all families are getting some kind of financial aid from them. Of the 90%, 80% of that is need-based. Only 10% these days is just solely merit-based. But the need-based, again, it's calculated from a couple different applications, which I'll show you in just a little bit. And again, can be grants, scholarships, increased scholarship amounts, student loans, work study, all sorts of different options that are out there. To be considered for a merit scholarship, really, truly, a student just needs to apply for admission. We pretty much have all we need at that moment in time to make a decision about any merit-based scholarship that the college itself offers. The piece of advice I would offer at this point would be, if there is a scholarship that your student was not considered for, but the college offers, talk to the college, because it could be that maybe they overlooked something in the application for admission, or perhaps there's an extra step that a student needs to do, like at Lake Forest. For any of our fine arts scholarships, students need to submit a portfolio or come in for an audition. Something like that may not necessarily happen automatically at the time of admission. So if you and your students see anything that they were not considered for, that they thought they should have been considered for, absolutely, that's a wonderful question to ask the college admission counselor. And then at this point in time, if you get a merit-based scholarship amount and you think that's good enough, you think this will make it affordable to send my child to this college, nothing else you need to do. You are good to go at that point. But what I would suggest and encourage and hope is that you would see what else is out there, because again, be part of the 80% that get something more than just a merit-based scholarship. To be considered for more, there's a universal application called the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, the FAFSA. Some of you may be familiar with that. You may have done it at least once or twice or more in the past. It asks some really basic demographic, identifying, and financial information from a family to calculate an index number. Again, here's one of those little acronyms. The index number is called Student Aid Index. So in case a financial aid office talks to you about Student Aid Index or SAI, it's the index number that was calculated from the FAFSA. And it's what tells us initially, whether the student qualifies for any kind of federal grants or state grants, the MAP grant from Illinois, or something from the college itself. An overview of the FAFSA, it's available December 1st. For the last couple years, so last year, the FAFSA was overhauled dramatically. I mean, it was huge overhaul, which not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it needed it. And I'll tell you what, when it worked really well. When it didn't work, which was unfortunate a lot of the time, it didn't work at all. So they delayed opening the FAFSA from a traditional October 1st open to December 31st last year, and now December 1st this year, because they still want to work out, some of the kinks, some of the bugs in it. But when it does open, it will be much easier than ever before in the life of a FAFSA to complete. I'll go in. I have a lot of screenshots, not too many, a lot of screenshots to show you about the FAFSA and how to complete it so that you are one of the ones where you say, oh my God, this was so easy. And we did it so well. The website to access, there's only one place to access the FAFSA, and that's online. And that's at fafsa.gov. Actually, there is another place online, studentaid.gov, but fafsa.gov takes you directly to the landing page of the FAFSA. 2 sections. It asks about student information and parent information. It'll ask about income. And again, one of these things, and I'm sorry, if a financial aid office talks about, oh yeah, the FAFSA is going to ask for prior year information. Well, what we mean by that is it asks you for income that is on file with the IRS, which at this moment in time is the 23 tax year. Even though your child might be applying for college for the fall of 25, that's where that prior thing comes into play. But you will bring in your information directly from the IRS website through the use of the direct data exchange, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail. That automatically populates the FAFSA for you, so you're not having to review the question saying, is this what they're asking for? What line item on a tax return? It makes it so much easier for you. When we talk about the student information in the student section on the FAFSA, initially, the first part is going to ask about identity, who the student is, name, address, social security number, date of birth, and then contact information, cell phone number, and email address. It'll ask about the student's financial information, and only if a student filed a tax return in 23, then that information is brought into the FAFSA automatically. Even if they earn money and they file the tax return, unless the student's income is huge, like huge meaning over $10,000 a year, it does not come into play very much at all in calculating that index number that I talked about. There's a section on here that says, tell us where you want the FAFSA sent, when all is said and done, and tell us which schools you're interested in. A student can list up to 20 colleges on the FAFSA. That is also a change in the last couple of years, where it used to be limited to 10 schools, but now they increased it to 20 schools. Something we in the financial aid community have been lobbying for years and years. So it's one of these small victories that we'll take. Every college has a unique FAFSA code, a FAFSA code that you would indicate on the FAFSA so that we know you fill the FAFSA out and we can draw down the information electronically. The code is very specific to the campus, especially important in some of the larger systems like Wisconsin. Madison has a different FAFSA code than La Crosse, than Whitewater, than Milwaukee. An example of a FAFSA code is at Lake Forest. Our FAFSA code is 001706. In case you wanted to jot that down. Again, I'm just saying, as an example, 001706. If you were to put that code on there, we would know that you filled out a FAFSA and we would draw down that information and start the financial aid review process for you on our end. And then the student reviews their section and signs it electronically. Parents, very similar for you. You're putting in your identity information, your name, your social security number, your email address as well, the parents' contact information, or not contact, the financial information. That's what's brought in directly from the IRS site through the use of the direct data exchange. And I'll show you a point on the FAFSA where parents, you must agree to bring this information into the FAFSA from the IRS site. If you don't, you cannot fill out the FAFSA. Then it just ends right then and there. Student is not considered for any kind of federal, state, or anything from the college itself. It's kind of a all or nothing thing at this point. It'll ask the parent to clarify or update or just kind of reiterate what their marital status is and household size, how many people living at home, how many kids you'll have in college, during the upcoming school year. The state of legal residence, because this is a one size fits all application for every family across the country, indicating Illinois will then trigger the Illinois Student Assistance Commission to consider your child for the MAP grant. And then parents, you will review it and you will sign it electronically as well. Some of the frequently asked questions that we get, the definition of parents. If parents are married, both parents' information is included on the FAFSA. If parents are divorced or separated, the rule of thumb then is whomever the student lives with the most or has lived with the most over the last 12 months, that becomes the parent of record on the FAFSA. So if that parent is divorced or separated, not remarried, then it's only that parent information on the FAFSA. If that parent has remarried, then the step parent information is required on the FAFSA as well. The only time that can be an issue in terms of definition of parents is in divorced or separated households. If a student has lived the exact same amount of time between both households, then the parent who has the higher income becomes the parent of record on the FAFSA. But keep in mind, there's 365 days in a year. So unless the student is leaving one household at 11:59 p.m. and getting to the other household at 12:01 a.m., they're not living exactly the same amount of time between the two households. So that's where you come into play, where you determine who the student has lived with the most over the last 12 months. The FAFSA is more income driven than anything else. 98% of the time, there are not enough assets that a family has that impact that index number. Still, the FAFSA will ask you a little bit about assets. It will only ask you about any money that you've got in savings or the stocks or other real estate other than your home. If you own a farm or business, what the value of the farm, maybe not so much the farm, but if you have a business, how much the value of your business is. And if you have a 529 plan, if you've got an education savings plan for the student, they'll ask for the value of that, just the value for just the value of the plan that you have for the student who is applying for financial aid. Assets that are not included are anything to do about your primary residence, your home equity, nothing to do about the value of your retirement account, or if you have 529 plans for other children, they don't want to know about that either. Life insurance policies or annuities. When all is said and done, you kind of take a look at the assets that are included. If those assets total $250,000 or more, then they start to come into play in the index calculation. But really, unless they're that amount or greater, they get diluted so much and filtered so much in the formula that it's as if you have nothing. And if I had a crystal ball, my prediction would be that really in just another couple of years, assets are going to come out of the equation completely because they just do not come into play at all. Plus, if they did, it's kind of penalizing families who do save, as opposed to those who don't save for college. And then you're filling out one FAFSA per student. If you've got 2 kids in college, 2 FAFSAs because it is student specific. To access the FAFSA, a student and a parent need a username and password. It's called the Federal Student Aid ID, FSA ID. That's what allows a student and a parent to log into their sections of the FAFSA. Students need one, parents, you need a separate one, and only one parent needs one. One of the things that you could do, because even though I can't see you, I can just sense the excitement and like, I want to do something tonight. You actually could apply for these FSA IDs tonight or tomorrow, or this weekend, because it can take a few days for it to be finalized because they are doing, again, as part of the security check, the identity theft, the hacking, and all of making sure that none of that happens. They're making sure that your name belongs to your social security number, to your date of birth, and that the email is being sent to your particular email address. So a student needs one and a parent needs one. I've got the address here, but you'll get the link, later on as well. This is the landing page for the FAFSA. This is what you'll see when you go to fafsa.gov. The student logs in first with the student's username and password. They log in. They'll see a couple pages. Parents, you'll also see these same 4 pages, more informational, actually pretty decent. I mean, they've done a great job of saying this 2-minute video. What is the FAFSA all about? Why do you even have to fill this out? Who is contributing, their information to the FAFSA? Parents, it used to be called you were just parents, but now for FAFSA purposes, I don't know why, you are called contributors to the FAFSA. You're still parents, and it refers back to parents on the FAFSA when you get to that part. What to expect, how long that they think that it will take you to complete. But honestly, in this example, in this screenshot, and by the way, I have 24-25 screenshots because we don't have the 25-26 FAFSA screenshots sent to us yet because it won't be available until December 1st. I really don't think it's going to take you more than about 20-30 minutes to complete the FAFSA. And then afterwards, what happens next? Students will get an email confirmation that has been processed. Schools typically will send an email confirmation to the student and the parent too, saying, hey, we got your FAFSA results. Here's what else you need to do for us before we can send you any more information about financial aid. One of the first pages that the student will see with their information is the student identity information. This comes off of the username and password, the FSA ID that they created for themselves. The only editable fields on this would be their email address and their cell phone number. If they put the wrong email address in there, or they just want to change it to another one, or the cell phone number, they can do this at this point. They cannot change their name or social security number or date of birth. Students will also invite parents to be part of this, because if a student is a dependent student for financial aid purposes, which means they're not 24 years old, they're not a graduate student, they're not married, they don't have kids of their own, they're dependent for financial aid purposes, which means parents' information is required on the FAFSA as well. At this point in time, students will invite the parents to be part of the FAFSA process. Now, in the best sense of this is the only time that being a helicopter parent is not bad, where you hover over the student, because it will ask for the parent's social security number and the parent's email address. So you want to make sure that you get it exactly right when the student cues it up for you to get an email invitation to fill in your section of the FAFSA. Student selects the colleges, a couple different ways that they can do that. They can search by putting in the state, the partial name of the school. Many colleges' websites, the financial aid, will tell you up front what their federal school code is, like the 001706 that Lake Forest FAFSA code is. Students will put that in, and here they're going to review it and make sure they put the right FAFSA code in there. I like this example, the screenshot actually, because you can see that one on the top, Rice University in Burlington, California. Did the student mean to put Rice in California, or did they mean to put Rice University in Texas? Student will then sign it electronically. We don't see it on this screenshot. I don't know why I cropped it too much, but there'll be a little checkbox that we will see on the parent screenshot, by the way. There'll be a little checkbox that they make sure they check, and then they submit the information, and they get a confirmation page saying the student section is complete. The key word here is almost. You're almost there, because it's halfway done. We still need the parents to complete their section to make this fully done. Parents, you will get an email invitation to put your information in. The best, most successful way to complete your section is to look for that email invitation and to click on that little login in the blue box that you see there, as opposed to going to FAFSA.gov and logging in from scratch there, which you absolutely can do. If you log in from the email address, it will know it's you, and so it'll populate a little bit of the information automatically for you. You'll get to this website. Parents, you will log in with a FSA ID that you created for yourself, not the student's FSA ID. Here is where parents, you need to provide consent saying, yes, I agree to have the IRS bring the income information into the FAFSA. Again, at this point, if you don't, nothing will happen. The FAFSA is DOA. I mean, it's just going to stop. You won't be able to do anything else. You will continue though, and again, kind of reiterate or clarify the marital status. You'll clarify or reiterate household size. And here's kind of a tricky little part that's being fixed in the next kind of month or so before the rollout of the FAFSA. The household size is automatically assumed to be the number of tax exemptions on your 23 tax return. Now, one of the tricky parts is you don't see any of the tax information. You don't see the household size. Rather, you don't see the number of tax exemptions. So you're kind of flying blind here and saying, well, I'm hoping that I've got a copy of my tax return, maybe 5 tax exemptions is the household size. But here is where you can update the household size if something has changed since the 23 tax return was filed. Either there's another family member in the household, or in the case of divorced parents, we see a lot of times where one parent, the non-custodial parent, may claim the child as an exemption, a tax exemption, but really the child, the student, is living with the other parent. So at this point in time, you will have the option of saying, no, I need to update the household size. There are 6 people in the household. And of the students in the household, how many are going to be in college during the upcoming school year? The index number does not take the number you have in college into consideration, but most every college will kind of qualify that with the word most. I'll get to that in just a little bit as well. Then here's where you self-disclose any assets that you might have, what the value, the self-reported value of a business you might have, or what you've got in a 529 plan. There'll be some links on this page that go into much greater detail, much better information definition of what is included in here. Even the child support was moved from being part of income to being part of an asset, which is a good thing. Again, because I go back to that, it gets filtered so much that unless you've got $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in savings or cash on hand, it's not going to impact the index number at all. And then parents, you will sign this electronically. Here's where I hope you can see that little box, at the bottom of the page. You check that box and you sign and submit. When you get to the confirmation page, when you see the word congratulations, you are golden. You are all set. This application is absolutely complete. And within 48 to 72 hours, colleges will be able to download this information as well. Some successful, FAFSA tips, to make it a much easier process for you. Apply for the federal student aid IDs tonight, this weekend, over the next month or two. One for the student, one for the parent. For the student, let them do the student section first and get to that confirmation page where you're almost there. Make sure they get that and they see that. Parents, reply to that email, click on the link in the email to get you right into the FAFSA site, and then review it. Sign it electronically, get the confirmation page. Congratulations, you are all set. Hot off the press, really just late yesterday, a couple more tips the federal student aid programs gave us to make sure that this works well for you is use Google Chrome as your browser. That is, you won't have any issues with that. You might have some issues with Firefox or some of the other browsers out there, but if you can use Google Chrome, that will be the best process for you. Using a tablet, do not use a tablet. Basically, that's going to just cause some issues. The preferred view is the desktop, so not doing it on your phone, just do it on the desktop. And then, like and I do this all the time, a lot of autocomplete, parts of a website that we go to, do not use autocomplete to enter any information. Enter the information from scratch. That might seem a little much, but that, I promise you, that will help you in the long run. The FAFSA is really cut and dry. I kind of glossed over. It's more income driven than anything else. You're filling out the FAFSA. It's creating an index number, but it doesn't just end there, because special circumstances, expenses that a family has, can come into play a lot in this process. What looks like one way on the tax return may not be the real way or the more consistent way in real life, in your pocketbook. Or if the 23 income was $100,000, but that included a one-time payout, or something happened where income in the future is going to be less, or you've got healthcare expenses or emergency home repairs, all sorts of different things that we can take into consideration before we make the financial aid offer to a family, because we at a college and a financial aid office want to tailor this response. We really want to make this a personal response to your particular family, taking everything that you might be going through into consideration. Whether there's a change in income, or you're paying private school tuition, or medical or healthcare expenses that insurance didn't cover, or a change in marital status, emergency home repairs, so many things that a college will take into consideration before, to kind of take that index number and, God, not to use kind of a cliche, but to move the needle on the index number to decrease the index number, because the lower the index number, the higher your eligibility for financial aid. A couple different ways that the college can find out about this from you. There's a common financial aid supplemental application called the CSS Financial Aid Profile. There are about 450, 500 colleges that use this application. If they use this application, fill it out for them, because that is one common, one-stop shop way for you to tell them what else is going on in your life. If they don't use the CSS profile, they'll typically have their own application for financial aid, or standalone forms that we use the CSS profile. If you didn't want to fill that out for us, that's fine. If you had a change in income, we would send you the income change form. If you had some healthcare expenses you wanted to report to us, we would send you the healthcare expense form. So creative these names are, I know, but many colleges are like that. They will have standalone forms for you that you use to tell them more is going on. Here's a screenshot of the CSS financial aid profile. And I'll show you this for a couple of reasons. One, here's the link that you would use to access it. But more importantly, there's a little link at the bottom left-hand side that tells you which schools either require this or strongly encourage you to fill this out, or accept it. If you're going to do it for somebody else, we'll take it. If a school is not on this list, don't fill out the CSS profile for them. They are not set up technically to accept the result of it. So really only check if the schools tell you you need to fill this out, or that they accept it. That's another thing that colleges up front in the financial aid office will tell you is, here's our process. Fill out the CSS profile, fill out the FAFSA. That's all you need to do. Or tell us that there's more going on in your life. What's going on behind the scenes, what moves us, what kind of the philosophy that every one of my colleagues across the country has going on for them is, this is a partnership. Students and parents, we look at you as the primary partners and hope that you'll do everything that you possibly can, reasonably can, to help with the cost. But we know that you'll need more. And so we are there for you as well, to review the applications, review the materials that you're giving us, not to do judgment calls. By no means are we looking at or asking you, oh, what kind of car do you drive, or where do you live? No, we're not performing a cash flow analysis or anything like that. We're bound by some of the regulations and the formulas and the rules that we must follow to come up with appropriate, economic strength for a family, the ability for a family to pay for college versus the willingness, for a family to pay for college. So I can't tell you enough how special circumstances, matter in this process. They absolutely will decrease that index number for you so that we can maximize the financial aid eligibility for you. Communication is key. We want to make sure that students and parents are on the same page, that you're doing what you need to do when you need to do this, so that you are not missing out on thousands and thousands of dollars. There are some programs like the MAP grant, for example, the State of Illinois MAP grant. When they announce their deadline that it's the last time to fill out the FAFSA, if you miss that, by 1 minute, if you do not complete the FAFSA by 11:59 p.m., if it's done at midnight or 12:01, you will have missed out on being considered for $8,000. It gets to be that extreme. Now that's extreme. It may not get to that point, but making sure you're doing everything that we need you to do when you need to do it is very important. And so colleges will do what they can to make sure they communicate with both the student and the parent. But here is a good point where parents, you should ask the colleges, how will you as a parent stay in the loop? Because there are some colleges, not the majority, but some colleges that will only communicate with the student and hope that the student communicates with the parents. And unless the student has given that college expressed written consent to share information with anybody else, the college will not. So I had a conversation with a family. I know I've told this story before, but I mentioned, for example, at Lake Forest, we automatically share any in the communication flow, we include the parents. And in this meeting with the family, I said, we carbon copy the parents on everything that comes out of our office. And the student was like, carbon copy, what? I explained what that CC colon meant, but we will do that automatically. Many colleges will, but please, please, please ask to make sure you're not missing out on what you need to do. We're your advocate. We want to make sure that we give you as much as we possibly can, because if a student is admissible, if we send a letter of admission, we want your student to enroll there. And so we will make it as affordable as we possibly can. When we send out the financial aid offer, it can be called lots of different things. Financial aid award letters, financial aid announcements, financial aid offers. It's really a combination of all of the grants and student loans and work study and every scholarships and everything that we know of that is a package that's offered to the student, to the family. Cosmetically, it can look very different, and I'll show you in just a second what a common financial aid award letter looks like. But the makeup of the package can also be very different. A lot depends on the cost of the school. Lower cost schools are just not going to give you as much as higher cost schools. Scholarship criteria, some schools may say, hey, if you're submitting your test scores and you've got an SAT of 1,500, you're going to get a $30,000 scholarship. If that SAT is 1,510, we'll give you a $40,000 scholarship. They'll have almost all schools I see now. Most all schools will have a scholarship grid, kind of upfront, transparency to the family, saying if you fall in here, this is what your scholarship is going to look like. Or any given year for some of the other talent-based scholarships, some schools that offer a music scholarship, any given year may offer twice as many this year as they are last year because they have so many of their music students graduating. So, or they may really, really, really need bassoon players, in the band, in the marching band, I don't know. In the concert, I don't know. But they might need a bassoon player. And so they may, for a good bassoon playing student, may offer a really healthy scholarship. Another school may say, hey, we know you play the bassoon really well. We'll just give you a token scholarship because we just don't have the funds to give you more. Financial aid is renewable for all 4 years. So what you receive first year, you can expect to receive all 4 years, really, unless something dramatic happens in your family. And I think, I have to look at this, but I think the Mega Millions this Friday is approaching $1 billion. I got to go and get my tickets regardless, even if it's $600 million. But if you were that one winner of the Mega Millions, then financial aid may not look the same in future years, but it has to be something that extreme. What you get first year, you should expect to receive for all 4 years. Here's an example of a proposal for a common financial aid award letter. Not many colleges are sending out anything that looks like this. The essence of it does look like this, where they separate out the costs. Here's what shows up on the actual tuition bill, tuition, fees, housing, meals, if you're living on campus, as opposed to indirect costs. On average, what students pay for books or travel or laundry or pizza on the weekends. And then the gift aid, the free money, the grants and the scholarships. The difference between those two is your net cost. And that is the actual definition of net cost. It's cost of attendance at every college. It's cost of attendance minus just the free money. It'll be called net cost. It's also called net price. You'll hear that more than net cost. Student will also receive student loan options and work study options in this section. Parents, you'll see other options here, particularly for you. Payment plans, the federal parent loan, other kinds of options, ways to pay that the college offers to you. The colleges also, on their financial aid award letter, will give you more consumer disclosure for the educated consumers that we should be. It will tell you, and again, here's where the college can toot its horn, saying, here's why we think you should pick us, why we are a great ROI, return on investment. Our graduation rate after 4 years is 90%. Our student loan default rate is like next to nothing. We don't even give student loans to some of our students, or our median debt, or average earnings, all sorts of really good information, the same information that you'll see on the college scorecard. The colleges will also embed that information on the financial aid award letter as well. Deadlines are huge. They are vital. They are essential. Any of the synonyms that I can use for that word. Know what the deadlines are, not only for admission, not only for their merit-based scholarships, not only for financial aid, outside scholarships, but maybe if you're like me, I'm a very visual person, kind of out of sight, out of mind. So if I've got something to do, I create a spreadsheet for myself and I keep it like right in front of me. Perhaps create a spreadsheet for yourself, whether you keep it on your refrigerator or keep it on your laptop. Look at all the deadlines for all of the different schools. And a good rule of thumb is get everything done. Whoever has the earliest deadline, get everything done for all the colleges by that earliest deadline. That way you're not doing one school this week, another school the next week, and following up maybe in 2 weeks or a month for the 3rd, 4th, or 20th school. Keep track of everything that you need to do when you need to do it, but also keep track of a contact person at that college in the financial aid office saying, I talked to Jerry at Lake Forest College on December 15th. He promised me that we would get a financial aid award letter by December 20th. And so keep track of when you are expected to receive these financial aid offers and then follow up. Be proactive with us. And I'll tell you quite honestly, at times of the year, I love it when you give us nudges, gentle nudges in the financial aid office, because there's so much going on. We're spinning so many plates that it helps if you are proactive to just kind of remind us that we promised you something, but you haven't received it yet. Lots of places where you can get help. At the 3 high schools that are represented tonight, absolutely wonderful resources there. The college's financial aid office, a couple of the websites that I've included here, even the federal student aid has its own YouTube channel. So one of the things I would recommend is look at their little 2-minute video about how to create an FSA ID. It's pretty straightforward, but it'll help answer any questions that you might have. Some of the key takeaways: students are applying for admission now. Some students were applying for admission at the end of summer, but students are applying for admission now. The profile, if you need to complete the CSS profile, that actually opens October 1st. So you can do that starting October 1st, not the FAFSA, because that will open on December 1st. Talk to us about any special circumstances that you might have, because we're going to start to send out award letters anywhere from mid-December through mid-April. There are many colleges that will do it on a rolling basis. There are some colleges that just kind of do it in batch. Northwestern, they will not send out their letters of admission or financial aid until sometimes late March, early April. But they have earlier deadlines than that. So in some sense, it's kind of a hurry up and wait, but really you should meet their deadlines, even though you may not hear anything from them for a few months. Ask us questions. We want you to email us, call us, come back to campus, make an appointment with us, come to our admitted student days, visit days, so that you can make sure all of your questions are answered, because we want your student to enroll in college. We want them to be at that particular college. So we want to make sure that everything is clear and that everything is as affordable as we can make it. Certainly there'll be times where it's not affordable enough, but that's just because the college may not be able to offer
as much as you think you need, or as much as you really do need to make it affordable. May 1st is one of those drop dead dates that I talked about. It's called the National Candidate Reply Date, and many colleges still adhere to this date where students must commit by May 1. Colleges close their class on May 1. We closed our class. I know a lot of colleagues at other colleges closed their first year class on May 1. So students did not respond by then. Offers of admissions were rescinded. Offers of financial aid were rescinded. May 1 seems so far in the future. And it is. I mean, literally it is. But time is flying. It's September 19th already. It's just, it's the middle of September. It's going to be October 1 before we know it. The days are getting shorter. The daylight is getting shorter. So starting this process now, getting the FAFSA done, soon after December 1st as you possibly can, gives us enough time to have more relaxed conversation, relaxed visits, well before the student must commit. Colleges love it when the students decide and commit well before May 1. Absolutely. If everything is good to go, you can commit anytime you want. But I've talked a lot, and I think I just wanted to get through so much. I'm going to end this slideshow. I'm going to take a sip of water, and I'm going to answer all of the questions that might still be outstanding. And I'll turn it back over to Becky, Aaron, and Bianca. Yes? There we go. Hi, Bianca.
Hi there. All right, Jerry, we have a couple questions for you whenever you're ready.
I'm ready.
We had a question in the crowd. Does the student have visibility to parent input information on the FAFSA?
No, they do not. That's a good question. They do not. They do not. Short answer is no. Parents, you don't even have visibility to your own information.
And then we had another.
Just to clarify on that, that's talking about the information that's pulled automatically from the IRS, right? You, as the parent, would not even see what is pulled directly. A student would be able to see the SAI index, and they would also be able to see, like, once you complete the FAFSA, if your family or student rather is eligible for a Pell Grant, that information is sent to them, but right, like none of the specifics in terms of like numbers. Okay, thank you.
That's exactly right. And Becky, is a good point, because parents, if you wanted to know what that was, you would have to talk to the financial aid office. We obviously have access to it, but the confirmation page and anything that you would view online is all, I don't know the word to use for it, but you don't see it.
And Jerry, that would include like asset information as well. They would not see that.
That's correct.
Okay, we had a question. Back earlier in the presentation, you brought up graduation rates. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by a graduation rate over 6 years?
Yeah, so here, this is very interesting, because as we report, as colleges, we report our outcomes. And so we report graduation rates as of 6 or 7 years. Because of the pandemic, the 5-year, the typical industry standard 5-year graduation rate was extended to 6 years and even 7 years, because during the pandemic, students were taking a semester off, they were stepping out of school for a while, stopping out of school for a while. So it wouldn't really reflect accurately what it was like. So right now, it's a 6-year graduation rate that the college presents in terms of federal data to the education department. That's going to change back probably, gosh, it's been, really didn't end the pandemic until just a couple of years ago. We're only in 24. So probably in another year or two, we're going to go back to a 5-year graduation rate.
Thank you for that. We have another question. I know during your presentation, you were talking about parental custody, parents being divorced and whatnot. If parents are divorced, can each parent sign up for their own unique username and password, which would be the FSA ID, or do they need to share one?
Each parent can sign up for their own. I mean, well, let me back up. Parents cannot share one. Well, I suppose they could share one if you just create one, but then the parent to whom it does not belong would be using the other parent's information. Let me back up even more. In a case of divorced or separated, only one parent needs one. I would not encourage both parents to get one. Just the parent of record should get one.
Perfect. Becky, Aaron, am I missing anything in the chat?
I don't think so. I was typing an answer about, this is somewhat related about merit awards, but if you miss an October SAT, can you take the November SAT to submit for scholarships? It's one of those it depends answers. Becky and Bianca help me out if I'm speaking off path, but some schools, there's specific policies around what they admit by specific deadlines. Some schools will take an updated score through April or May, and some want all of your materials by a November 1 or January deadline. So that's kind of talk with your counselor, pop in your CRC, but that's a little bit of research on your end.
There's
And
also a
the
question.
score is not leading your admissions decision anywhere. I just have to get that in there.
There was a question about merit scholarships or financial aid packages rather, and it says like now that the information is based on like 6 years to graduate, do financial aid packages cover 6 years? And I guess it's a nuanced answer. One would be merit scholarships are, and Jerry, like interrupt me, but merit scholarships a lot of times are offered to seniors in high school when they apply and are admitted. And a lot of times those are something the college will specify if it's just a one-time scholarship or if it's an amount that you can expect for 4 years. I think most colleges will say it's for 4 years. And then need-based aid is gonna, be different from year to year. You're gonna have to fill out the financial aid paperwork, but you can anticipate that there's not gonna, if your financial information stays the same, the financial aid in terms of need-based aid should stay consistent throughout the time that you're at college.
Yeah, Becky, that's great. And the only thing I would add is it depends on the different colleges. Of course, I hate that answer, but it depends whether some will limit their scholarship to 4 years or most will extend it to typically a 5th year. But for federal and state financial aid purposes, there is an expiration date of eligibility for 6 years of undergraduate work. If it's going to take a student more than 6 years, they will no longer qualify for any kind of need-based financial aid, quite honestly. Yeah.
We've got a question. I love the wording. Can you provide a legit list for local scholarships website? So I think Bianca shared in one of her responses, I'm going to be broader than local to start, but she mentioned Going Merry, FastWeb. There are kind of those comprehensive scholarship searches out there. Those are legit. Remember, you should never be paying money to research or apply for scholarships. Also, I do remind students that often some of those third-party sites, while they are legit, they are also can be kind of collecting your data and often will be pulling scholarships from the same sources. So try to focus on one that you might be connecting to and feeling kind of an energy with that's supportive to you. And then as far as locals, we have a District 128 scholarship database. LHS and VHHS have a local scholarship program that opens for us. It's in December. So on a more local sense, be checking that Google Classroom and listening and paying attention, checking in with local awards, which again are going to be opening, be advertised past November 1, closer to winter break in December. Bianca, what about Carmel? The families or specifics?
Yeah, so Carmel, we have all of our local, community, regional scholarships listed on Maya Learning. And those are updated as we receive the information from the local organizations. So more to come over the next several months in the platform.
And I want to throw in there, I like to remind families, when you hear of students that are receiving large amounts of money as scholarships to go to college, the majority of that money is coming directly from the colleges. The local scholarships oftentimes are like $500 here, maybe $1,000. Some can be a little bit more substantial, but the national scholarships can be very difficult to win. I've never actually heard from any of my students who have like won a national one. I think we had one that won an Amazon, like big time one. But generally speaking, the most money kids are going to get is from the college itself. And a lot of times, if there's some sort of like deadline for receiving merit aid, it would be an early action deadline for the application for admission. And so at this point in the year for seniors, I say the most important thing they can be doing in terms of like financial stuff, other than creating an FSA ID, would be focusing on getting those apps in by whatever deadline the college has for awarding merit aid.
And for those of you with rolling plans, if you see that rolling admission timeline, you can just kind of create your own early action, which again is not binding, but the sooner you have that app in, the sooner that school can flag you for that merit money. Win, win, win.
I was looking at some of the Q&A, and there was a question here that talked about comparing financial aid offers from the different colleges. Is there a tool or website that can help with this process? Yes, there is. There's so many out there, but I tell you, the one I use and the one I recommend is the Consumer Protection Bureau website. Has a really nice financial aid award letter comparison tool, because it really levels it out. It really does compare apples to apples and does a really good job of differentiating between free money versus the student loan versus a student loan versus a parent loan. So I like if you just go to Consumer Protection Bureau website and maybe just Google financial aid award letter comparison, you'll see it. There was another question earlier about applying for admission for the fall of 25 and filling out a FAFSA for the fall of 25, but updating it. Was that the fall of 24 that was meant? Because the FAFSA the FAFSA for the fall of 25 is the one that opens December 1st. The current one is only for the fall of 24. So I just want to make sure.
I'm glad you circled back to that one too, because last year with the timeline delays, it was not uncommon for families to think they had done the FAFSA, but it wasn't the 24-25 FAFSA. So our families are looking for 25-26 FAFSA.
Right.
And we're like again, December 1, but we want to make sure. It feels weird all these years and then the prior. So
yeah,
that's what we want.
Yeah.
Question about scholarship needs beyond 5 to 6 year terms, such as for medical school. My quick answer on that is, again, to protect your undergraduate transcript. You again are going to be applying to medical school based on your academic merits and success. So making a great undergraduate choice, and then really from day one, remembering you're building a new academic profile as an undergrad potential professional applicant. And you're going to be in a way repeating this process of building a balanced, appropriate list for that med school, law school, etc. And again, jump in if I'm off base, but you help yourself the most with seeking that merit money at options available.
The only thing I would add about medical school, this is interesting, is a close friend of mine is director of financial aid at a medical school. I won't say which one, but they do not give student loans to their first year medical school students, because if they do not make it past first year, they don't want the student to be burdened with all sorts of student loans that they'll never be able to pay back because they're not a doctor. So that's interesting. Hmm.
So we did have a question about the benefit of the CSS profile. Will that earn you any more money beyond the FAFSA?
Yes. Short answer is yes, because the schools that use the CSS profile are wanting to know more about you because they have more to offer. And so they want to give you as much as they possibly can. And so the profile will share with the college any kind of special circumstances that you might have. Filling out the profile never, ever, ever hurts a family from getting financial aid. These are all really good questions. Yay.
Yeah. We've had great participation tonight, and we really appreciate all of the info you've shared, Jerry. I want to make sure everyone saw, we did answer it in the Q&A section, but in the past, Jerry has been gracious enough to share his slides with the three of us, and then this webinar is being recorded. So each of us will send the slides and the recording once they're available. So give us time to get all of that processed, but we'll send that. I know I'll be sending that out to all of the Vernon Hills families, not just the ones who registered. So
Yeah, this was the first time this happened to me at a program I did just the other day, where they created a QR code for the PowerPoint for the slideshow. And so if families took a picture of the QR code, then it downloaded the PowerPoint for them. I don't know how that works. I'm not like, I don't know. I mean,
you
I'm
don't need
familiar
to
with,
know that, Jerry.
no.
We've got an alternate method that is
Love it.
tried and true. So
Probably better. Absolutely better.
there you go.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, thank you, Jerry, so much. We really appreciate you
Absolutely.
taking time from your very busy schedule. Families, thank you for joining us, and never be afraid to reach out with any questions.
Yeah.
Everyone
Good
has a
luck,
good night.
everyone, and enjoy the process, if nothing else, and the college search process too. Have a great evening. Good night.
Good night.
Night. Thank you.